He's the best-selling author of 5 books, the sports editor of The Nation magazine. It took a while before The Nation actually had a sports editor. I'm glad it was Dave. He's the host of Sirius Satellite's popular weekly show, Edge of Sports Radio. His blog, The Edge of Sports, is read every week by thousands of people across the country. And his many TV appearances include, not limited to, but include ESPN's Outside the Lines, MSNBC's Countdown with Keith Olbermann, as well as the Rachel Maddow Show, and also Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. His latest book is called Bad Sports, How Owners Are Ruining the Games We Love, and it's just been released from Scribner. New York Times sports columnist Robert Lipset has called him the smartest and greatest sports writer in America, and I agree. Naomi Klein has said of him, not since Hunter S. Thompson has a sports writer shown the right snarl for the job. And the late, great Howard Zinn probably put it best when he said, if there were an award for most valuable sports writer, I would vote for Dave Zirin. So let's welcome him. So just let me explain what we're going to do. I'm going to start off with a few questions for Dave, and then we will open it up to the audience about halfway through the session.
Okay, can I say something first?
Absolutely.
First of all, thanks for dressing up, sir. I appreciate it. Second, the one person who didn't thank is the modesty is not just exterior, it's interior, is that he didn't mention himself, and if Sud hadn't been behind this project, obviously it doesn't happen, so I'm very grateful. So, I really am. And to Chris, and to Diane, and to Jeremy, and to Scott, and to Jason, and to everybody who made this happen. Loretta, I mean, it just, you too? Oh. I'm just humbled by it. Thank you so much for the work you guys did.
Okay, so a couple of questions to start off with to get it rolling. One of the first lines in the film that you say is that you love sports.
Yes, I do.
But in the film, you focus mainly on your admiration and respect for the political courage of athletes beyond the field of play. Can you say a little bit about what it is about sports itself, despite all the negative things that you discuss in the film, that keeps you being a fan?
Wow. Other than watching Tom Brady play quarterback, let me think for a second. No, credit where it's due. But honestly, it's like we could have done a film about the beauty of sports, but then again, that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because there's no industry that does a better job patting itself on the back than sports. I mean, imagine any other industry that tried to do that. Like the oil industry was like, hey, look at us, wow, we are awesome. Or anything, politics in Washington, gosh, aren't we just great? We're great. I mean, I guess that's, Fox and CNN. But so I guess they do that. But in other words, it's very common for the sports industry to pat itself on the back to a great degree, and I think the need for critical voices about what's wrong with sports is part of an expression of love of sports, because I'm a big believer that sports isn't something that should be rejected, it's something that should be reclaimed. I mean, because sports is ours. Sports is part of the human experience. I mean, anthropologists will tell you this. Like, as soon as people could clothe themselves and feed themselves, they played games. So why would we renounce that out of some sort of abstract principle, instead of saying, well, wait a minute, play should be ours? And I think this film is honestly meant to strike a blow in that direction. I'll tell you this, if one kid sees this, who's the kid who gets picked last for kickball, and feels kind of like, yeah, that's right, that's going to feel pretty good. So, I guess, Chris, that means you liked it. Just kidding. Sorry. Oh, you're the captain of kickball. I'm sorry. My bad.
Okay, to follow on from that a little bit, just as, I was going to say I'm going to act as a devil's advocate, but I'm actually going to have someone quote as the best devil's advocate you could get,
sure.
Which is, I want to quote Noam Chomsky to you on sports and get your reaction to what he says. His essential point, and that's the point many people, I think, many progressives, many people on the left would make, is that the basic role of sports is diversion, it's indoctrination, it's the dull people's brains. That's actually what he has said about sports. And it's what Marx would have called the opiate of the masses, that it's a distraction. And I think it's worth quoting at length, because he captures a lot of what a lot of people, most probably a lot of people in this room, actually may be thinking about sports. He says, so this is Chomsky, he says, sports offers people something to pay attention to that's of no importance, that keeps them from worrying about things that matter to their lives. And in fact, it's striking to see the intelligence that's used by ordinary people in discussions of sports, as opposed to political and social issues. I mean, you listen to radio stations where people call in, they have the most exotic information and understanding about all kinds of arcane issues. But caring about sports is a way of building up irrational attitudes of submission to authority. I think if you look closely at these things, that's why energy is devoted to supporting sports and why advertisers are willing to pay for them. As a sports fan, where do you diverge from Chomsky, and where do you agree with him?
First of all, Chomsky's a baseball fan, so what a hypocrite. Second of all, Chomsky and I, of course, we've disagreed about this publicly. We, of course, got in that famous fist fight on the Boston Commons. Fight's very dirty. No, honestly, that statement, calling sports the opiate of the people, what's wrong with opium? For goodness sake, why is opium get such wrong? No, I mean...
It stops you from doing politics. That's what Chomsky would say, right? What's wrong with it? It stops you from doing other stuff that's much more important. You want a drugged up population that doesn't care about anything? Sports are the same thing.
That would be news to a lot of... No. I think that might be news to a lot of activists here, but drugs get in the way of politics. Okay, sorry. I don't know where I was going with that. But no, more than anything though, it's all kidding aside. That argument, what it does is it doesn't explain some very basic truths, first of all. It doesn't explain why we have an association of Jackie Robinson with the Civil Rights Movement, or how sports could have produced somebody like Muhammad Ali or Billie Jean King. It doesn't explain the experience of Tommie Smith and John Carlos. It doesn't explain how sports has become such a platform for electric dissent in this country. And it also doesn't answer the question that we raise in this film, which is, all right, so sports is very politicized in normal times around issues of militarism, nationalism, corporate power. What do? Do you choose not to engage in it? Do you then choose to let it completely be like this mythological place where people watch sports while politics is pumped through the play, or do you engage with it? Do you fight for sports to actually be a real politics-free zone where you don't have the corporatism and militarism pumped through it? Do you fight for sports to not be racist, to not be sexist, to not be homophobic? I mean, I come from a town where people root for a team called the Redskins, for goodness sakes. I mean, do you choose not to see that, or do you engage with it? And then there's the other issue, too, which I think is really important for people on the left to deal with, which is about this issue of elitism. Because people like sports on one level because sports are very likable. I mean, for a lot of people, sports are exciting. Sports are fun. I mean, I don't know if anybody here has ever seen Derby before, but you go to something... Oh. But just to say, it's like, do you show up to something like to see Derby, and you're like, my goodness, the opium, the opium! Or do you say to yourself, you know what, this is something that sports could be, something grassroots, something participatory, something whose end goal is not selling you some crappy sugar-flavored drink, but actually getting some exercise, fun, competition, camaraderie. These are beautiful human things. And I think what Chomsky does is he throws out the baby, he throws out the bathwater, he throws out the kitchen sink. He takes away everything that people might find to be substantial about sports and meaningful. And instead it comes off as a way of looking down on people for engaging with it in the first place.